The War Doctrine Hall of the Interstellar Defense Academy was built to intimidate. Tiered stone seating curved around a vast holographic table,
As you
where
can see on
rotating
your
star
data
systems
slates,
and
the
glowing fleet
structural
markers hovered
integrity
in
of the
perfect
crystalline
formation.
matrix is
This
directly
chamber had
proportional to
shaped
the
the minds
applied
of
energy
admirals for
fluctuation.
centuries. Every cadet present knew that what was taught here became law across 3 sectors. At the center stood Instructor Kaelrix, a veteran tactician of the
Defensive
Virex
fleets,
Collective,
execute
his plated
symmetry
limbs
maneuver.
folded with practiced
Bastion
authority
fleet,
as he addressed
lock
the
into
class.
position and charge
Today,
shields.
Kaelrix
Hold the
announced, "We review the Rillian Corridor Suppression, a flawless containment strategy, studied, tested, and confirmed across 200 standard years." With a precise gesture, the hologram shifted. Defensive bastions locked into position. Supply routes glowed. Choke points pulsed red. No force has ever breached this configuration once fully deployed. Around the hall, cadets leaned forward. Some murmured in admiration. Others rapidly annotated their data slates. This battle was legendary not because of destruction, but because of inevitability. Once enacted, resistance collapsed within weeks. It was proof that perfect planning could end wars before they began. In the back row, a lone human girl sat quietly. Mara Vance did not take notes. She did not lean forward. Her dark eyes moved instead between fleet vectors, sensor ranges, and logistical overlays, absorbing relationships rather than facts. Compared to the armored species around her, she looked fragile. No natural plating. No enhanced limbs. Just a slim figure in an academy uniform that still felt new on her shoulders. Kaelrix continued, explaining how layered detection grids prevented infiltration and how overlapping kill zones eliminated surprise. "The brilliance of this doctrine," he said, "is that it allows no uncertainty. The enemy has no choices." A cadet from the front row raised a clawed hand. "Instructor, were contingency adaptations ever attempted?" "Unnecessary," Kaelrix replied smoothly. "There is nothing to adapt to." Mara's brow creased. She glanced down at her slate, then back at the map. Something was wrong. Not missing, but assumed. Her fingers tapped once against the edge of her seat, a habit she'd picked up back on Earth when solving problems that didn't want to be solved. Kaelrix finished his explanation and turned, satisfied. "This," he concluded, "is what strategic perfection looks like." The hall was silent. Then Mara spoke. "Permission to ask a question, Instructor?" Her voice was calm, almost hesitant, but it carried farther than expected. Kaelrix's sensory frills twitched as dozens of eyes shifted toward the human in the back. "Proceed," he said, curiosity edged with faint amusement. Mara rose slowly to her feet, eyes never leaving the hologram. "Why," she asked, "does this map assume the enemy wants to win the war instead of end it?" A ripple of restrained laughter moved through the hall, subtle but unmistakable. Several cadets turned fully in their seats now, curiosity sharpening into amusement. Kaelrix studied Mara as if reassessing a data point he had previously dismissed. "Wars," he replied, "are won by dominance, Cadet Vance. Ending a war is simply the result of victory." Mara inclined her head slightly. "On my world, Instructor, wars usually end when one side decides the cost of winning is higher than the cost of stopping." The amusement faded. Kaelrix gestured toward the hologram. "The Rillian Doctrine does not rely on enemy morale. It removes options entirely." "That's the problem," Mara said, stepping forward before she realized she was moving. "It only removes the options you're looking for." A few cadets exchanged glances. Kaelrix's tone cooled. "Explain." Mara swallowed once, then continued. "This formation assumes the opposing force will attempt penetration or sustained assault. Every layer reacts to forward pressure. But if the goal is disruption instead of conquest, the doctrine creates its own vulnerability." Kaelrix folded his limbs. "And you believe you've identified what centuries of tacticians have not?" "I think," Mara said carefully, "that they all trained against the same assumptions." Silence pressed in. Finally, Kaelrix extended a limb toward the holographic table. "Very well. Approach. Indicate this supposed vulnerability." Mara stepped into the light. The hologram washed over her uniform, painting her hands in blue and gold as she reached out. She highlighted a thin arc along the outer perimeter, barely marked. "The sensor band. It's optimized for mass detection." "As it should be," Kaelrix said. "Yes," Mara agreed. "Which means it deprioritizes anomalies below engagement thresholds." She adjusted the projection. Fleet icons dimmed. Data layers shifted. A dispersed signal attack here forces automated recalibration. Not an assault. Just noise. "That would accomplish nothing," a cadet muttered. Mara nodded. Exactly. But while recalibration cycles, command attention shifts. During that window, supply verification protocols lag by 37 seconds. Kelrix's eyes narrowed. Those systems are isolated. Logically, Mara said. Not psychologically. She tapped again, overlaying new vectors. You don't hit fleets. You hit confidence. Command reroutes resources to confirm stability. That movement creates asymmetry. The hologram changed. For the first time, the doctrine's perfect symmetry bent. A murmur spread, no longer laughter. Kelrix leaned forward. Continue. Mara hesitated. Every instinct warned her she was overstepping. But the pattern was clear now. Once seen, it couldn't be unseen. If I'm right, she said, this doctrine doesn't fail because it's weak. It fails because it assumes the enemy plays to win. She looked up at the instructor. And sometimes, she finished, the enemy just wants you to blink first. No one spoke as the hologram dimmed, its shattered formations fading into neutral light. The doctrine that had defined generations now existed only as a failure repeatedly confirmed. Cadets sat frozen, some staring at Mara, others at their slates as if hoping the data would change if they looked hard enough. Commander Othrex broke the silence. Cadet Vance, he said, your analysis relies on deception, hesitation, and psychological strain. These are not conventional metrics. Mara met his gaze. On Earth, sir, they're the only metrics that matter. Othrex inclined his head slightly. Explain. Mara took a breath. Every eye in the hall was on her now. Humans evolved on a world where nothing is stable. Weather turns lethal without warning. Disease adapts faster than treatment. Predators hunt cooperatively. Even our own species competed for the same ground. She paused, choosing her words. We never had the luxury of assuming fairness or symmetry. Kelrix listened in silence. We learned early, Mara continued, that systems fail not at their strongest point, but at the assumptions holding them together. So we don't attack walls. We attack trust, timing, confidence. She gestured toward the darkened table. That doctrine isn't weak. It's elegant. Which is why it breaks so cleanly. A low murmur passed through the cadets, not disbelief this time but understanding. Othrex turned slowly, surveying the chamber. For 300 years, he said, we have refined doctrine to eliminate uncertainty. Yet today, uncertainty defeated us without a single direct engagement. His gaze returned to Mara. Your species has been with the Academy less than 1 standard year. Yes, sir. And in that time, Othrex continued, you have exposed a systemic flaw we trained ourselves not to see. Mara said nothing. Othrex straightened. Effective immediately, all strategic curricula will be re-evaluated. Human adaptive analysis will be integrated into every advanced war simulation. The hall erupted, not in noise but in stunned realization. Careers would change. Doctrines would fall. Wars yet unfought would be rewritten. Kelrix stepped forward, his posture formal. Cadet Vance, he said, I mistook quiet for absence. Mara offered a small, tired smile. It's a common mistake, Instructor. As the cadets filed out, whispers following her path, Mara remained behind for a moment, looking at the empty table where perfect systems had once stood. On Earth, survival had never been about perfection. It had always been about seeing the flaw first. And now the galaxy had begun to learn the same lesson. Kelrix did not respond immediately. His gaze remained fixed on the warped hologram, the once perfect geometry now subtly unbalanced. Around the hall, cadets leaned forward, no longer entertained but intent. The room had shifted. This was no longer a lecture. It was a test. You are proposing, Kelrix said slowly, that a doctrine succeeds for centuries because no one dares misuse it. Mara shook her head. No, Instructor. I'm saying it succeeds because no one imagines misusing it. Before Kelrix could reply, the chamber doors parted with a resonant hiss. A tall figure stepped inside, command sigils glowing faintly along his mantle. Commander Othrex of the Strategic Oversight Council. Conversation died instantly. Even Kelrix straightened. I've been listening, Othrex said, his voice carrying effortless authority. His eyes settled on Mara. Cadet, you will demonstrate. Mara's throat tightened. Sir? Run the scenario, Othrex ordered. Full parameters. No theoretical allowances. Kelrix hesitated only a fraction of a second before gesturing to the console. Proceed. Mara exhaled and activated the simulation. The hologram surged to life. Fleets advanced. Sensor grids flared. At first, the Rillian formation held exactly as Doctrine predicted. Cadets began to relax, relief flickering across a few faces. Then the anomalies began. Peripheral signals bloomed and vanished. Command nodes rerouted attention. Logistics confirmations stacked in quiet queues. The formation adjusted, not enough to alarm but enough to shift internal balance. Mara layered her next action. Supply convoys stalled. Nothing exploded. No ships fired. Yet lines of efficiency dimmed one by one. Defensive fleets drifted a fraction out of optimal position as command sought clarity that never came. "What is happening?" someone whispered. Kael'ric stepped closer to the display. "They're compensating for a threat that doesn't exist." "Yes," Mara said. "And in doing so they're creating one." She initiated the final phase. A single strike team slipped through the thinned corridor, not toward a fortress wall, but toward the command verification lattice. They didn't attack. They tagged. The simulation recalculated. Red cascaded across the map. The Rillian defense collapsed inward, its own protocols choking response time. What once took weeks unraveled in under an hour. The hologram froze. Silence crushed the hall. Commander Othrex turned to Kael'rix. "Run it again." The simulation repeated. The result was worse. Othrex faced Mara once more. "How long have humans fought like this?" Mara hesitated, then answered softly. "As long as we've known that survival isn't about strength. It's about adaptation." Kael'rix looked at the shattered doctrine, then at the human cadet who had broken it without firing a shot. For the first time, his voice held no condescension. "Cadet Vance," he said quietly, "you may continue."